We're in the same boat here.
I'm nervous, girl.
But you're going to do so well. You're going to do well. The thing is that LinkedIn has made it so difficult to do this. And I'm trying to figure out how to let people in. I don't know if they need to be here. I don't know how to let people in.
How to let, oh, I don't know. Maybe, what's her name? Arielle knows.
Okay. Let me pause the recording. Start coming in and they join. Okay. So I'm so glad that you all are here with me today. My name is Tony S. Brown. I'm with Ayanna Facey and Dr. Arielle Jordan, and we're going to be talking about an important topic called breaking the silence, mental health, burnout, and personal branding for high achieving Black women. And so if you're here as a guest, you definitely don't have to turn on your camera. I would ask that you please stay muted. And if you have a question, you can just put it in the chat box and we will answer your question. But I'm so glad that you're here. And just a brief intro to our two experts. So we have Ayanna Facey. She is a licensed mental health counselor, psychotherapist, and founder of The Conscious Pearl, which is a holistic mental wellness practice dedicated to high achieving women and prioritizing their mental health and overall wellness through different dimensions of wellness. She has over 16 years of experience and she addresses burnout, compassion fatigue, I didn't even know that was a thing, and emotional intelligence to empower women, especially women of color. Dr. Arielle Jordan, she's a veteran, author, trauma therapist, and she speaks about grief, resilience, and mental wellness. She's known for her calm and courageous presence, and I have to attest to that. And she combines her military background with her personal experiences, and it keeps organizations and leaders they're able to navigate life's tough challenge with practical tools and real world strategies. So, welcome, Ayanna and Dr. Arielle. Do you want me to call you Dr. Arielle, or Dr. Jordan?
Hey, I'm okay with all three of those.
All right.
Uh,
Well, yes.
yeah, I'm comfortable with any of them. I introduce myself as Dr. Arielle. I'm okay with Arielle and I'm okay with Dr. Jordan. So whatever flows right on your end.
Okay, Dr. Arielle was good. You earned the doctor designation, so we use it. Okay.
That's true.
So we're having this conversation as a part of Mental Health Awareness Month, and even though it's the end of the month, I think that it's coming at a perfect time because there's so much going on. It's affecting us on a personal level, on a global level, and we just need to have conversations like this to expose the challenges and the problems, but also to talk about strategies too. Wouldn't you all think?
Definitely.
Yeah. So we also want to connect it with building brands too, because I feel that again, with everything that's going on, that personal branding, betting on yourself and using your own talents and expertise is the ticket because we
Mhm.
see that things are, kind of, all over the place, unstable to a degree, but within yourself, you're the stabilizing force. You're the grounding force. And so when you're building your personal brand, that's what you need to be. So combining personal branding and mental health awareness is important, is a huge part of this discussion. So here's a question for you, Ayanna and Dr. Ariel. What's the connection between mental health and the way women show up in their personal brand? And I'm just going from left to right. Yeah, Ayanna, you answer that question.
So the connection between our mental health and our personal brand is our mental health literally affects how we show up in the world. So if you're not mentally well, you're projecting onto others, and I'm sure that's affecting your personal brand. So we present with irrational thinking and cognitive distortions, and those things affect how we show up. So I think it's very important to prioritize mental health, because it is wealth. And if you don't, you will see the effects in your personal brand because it affects our authenticity as well. Personal branding is all about authenticity. So if we're showing up not well, I don't think you're going to be connecting with the people that's supposed to be meant for you to connect with.
Absolutely. Did you want me to take it next? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would have piggyback on that because I agree with that 100%. Mental health fuels your power to show up. And if if mental health is the foundation of how like I show up in my life and in my business. So I try to prioritize it and speak confidently while also being creative. And when I have clarity, I thrive. So knowing that about myself, I have to figure out how to make sure that my mental health is solid, so that I can show up. Because I'm not just showing up, I'm showing up as me. And I think
Mhm.
that's what matters when we're talking about like when it connects to branding, how I show up in my work, how I show up as a person. I feel like it still needs to be in alignment here. I can't, in my opinion, I can't be this person who's talking about like hustle and harmony when I'm not creating that for myself, then my brand doesn't make sense because how am I not practicing what I'm preaching? I
Mhm.
think in my mind, I can't be a mental health therapist if I haven't already seeked mental health therapy or continuous therapy myself, because then I'm not practicing what I preach. It doesn't make sense. So
Mhm.
that's my investment in my brand as well. My investment is that, sure, we know about investing in the website design and career coaching,
Mhm.
and, all of those are needed too. But also, how am I investing in my mental health? How do I normalize that to have a full human experience?
That I love those answers and just being authentic and making sure that who you say you are is who you actually are. Because that shows up and people can tell when you're being disingenuous online and they will call you out. So
Mhm.
definitely knowing yourself and doing that work before you begin to kind of expose yourself to the world, you need to be grounded in who you are. And that's a mental exercise, it's a mental pursuit for sure. And so I hear you all mention taking care of yourself. So how do you actually take care of yourself to make better decisions for your brand? If you could think of maybe 3 ways that ambitious sh- women, 3 ways that they can take care of themselves in order to make better decisions in their brand.
I guess
And
I'll say,
Ayana, yeah, you can answer first.
um, going back to alignment, right? I'd like to tell all my clients initially when I meet with them after doing the intake and everything, it's like, what are your values? We have to identify our core values. So in order to make sure you're making good decisions for your brand, you have to know who you are. The conscious pearl, get conscious. Like you have to be self-aware and intentional when it comes to making decisions for your brand. So I would say align with your core values. Um, Definitely being resilient. You have to be resilient when making decisions for your brand because things can go up and down and round and round and you get frustrated and annoyed. But if you're aligned with who you are and what you're doing and your core values, you'll definitely get to where you're going. And the third thing, as far as making better decisions for your brand, is I'll say community, just support. I think a lot of the times we do things in isolation. And I think being around good people and getting support from other people, we actually live out our values. And that's going to help us make good decisions for our brand as well.
Absolutely. I think that as you're talking, I'm thinking about like confidence. You have to show up as your true self. And when your mental health is in check, you feel comfortable doing that. You feel flaws and all, right? Like we show up. Um, I had 3 C's, confidence, consistency. You want to keep your promises to yourself and others. Like even when we tell ourselves like I want to do this thing and we don't do this thing, we're not building trust with ourselves. So like if we're talking about branding, I gotta show up when I tell you I'm gonna show up. If I tell you I'm gonna do
Mhm.
this thing at 3 on Friday, then most of the time people are looking for me at 3 on Friday. So obviously we have things that happen in between, but like because it doesn't mean perfection, it just means staying, grounded enough to stay present. Hey, maybe I missed a day. That's not going to ruin my brand. But, making sure that I'm showing up consistently is definitely a key part of that. And then I also think about creativity, really tapping into what makes you unique. So like stress and exhaustion can like block all of that stuff that
Mhm.
really makes you you. So if you're taking care of your mental health, typically you feel better and you're like oh, I have this fresh idea over here, and maybe I'll try it this way. And maybe nobody else has done it this way before, but let me try it. And so
Mhm.
I think when it comes to branding, also, tapping into what makes you unique is one of those things that, we don't have to have it all figured out. And as human, we got to give ourselves some grace, but also I got to show up in a way that feels real and also sustainable. And I think that's
Mhm.
what makes the personal brand unforgettable.
That is so good. And we were just talking about that a little bit previous about being consistent. And it
Mm,
is about showing up consistently for other people, but what about the promises that you keep to yourself? If you say, like for instance, I have every week I have a standing appointment with myself on Wednesdays. I don't work on Wednesdays.
mhm.
I might work on my own business, but I don't do client work on Wednesdays. And every other Friday, I'm doing something completely away from the office. Even if it's watching a Korean drama, I'm going to watch it every other Friday. So just keeping those promises to yourself and being consistent, that just, makes so much sense. But especially when you're talking about building a personal brand, because you have to show up consistently. Are
Yeah.
do you post and ghost? Do you post and then nobody sees you for another 30 days? Well,
Yeah.
that doesn't really get you the audience and the interest that you need, because you ghosted us now. And so I was thinking about just in your answers you kind of touched on it, but just the
Mm.
effects of burnout. Like, how does that show up when women are presenting themselves and their brand? How does burnout show up? And Dr. Arielle, we're going to go with you first for the answer.
Yeah, I think how burnout shows up is you're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, your brain is in survival mode, and decision making becomes hard. Sometimes we become reactive instead of intentional. So, what do you, so those are the indications of like, I gotta take care of myself. So, do I need rest? Do I need to eat? Do I need to walk outside and take a deep breath and look at the scenery? We have to figure out our kind of like, I guess, survival guide, like that creates mental space. Um, if I can think clearly, I can weigh options, I can make choices, that support my long-term goals. So self-care is the key to that, making sure that you show up as your best self and not your stressed self.
Mm, I like that.
Best self versus stress self.
I'm writing that down as your best self and not your stress self. I
Hold
love
on, let me write that down too, because
it.
I don't even know where that came from. Okay.
Oh, that always happens in sessions with me. I'm like, I said that just now. Let me write that down. It
That
just
is awesome. I love that. Show up as your best self and
Yeah.
not your stress self.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So burnout fundamentally changes like who we are and how we show up in the world. So when you're operating from a place of depletion, you cannot present your best self and it's gonna affect your brand. So that's what burnout looks like. You're just depleted, you're overly stressed, and most times you're on autopilot.
Mm.
A lot of people think burnout is you recover from burnout by taking a vacation or laying in bed, lounging in bed all weekend. But burnout really is like a fundamental change of your system. Like your systems are important. So what you do day to day, what time you wake up, what time you go to bed. And if those things aren't in order, and if you're not taking care of your wellness, you're going to be burnt out. So it's so important to address burnout by seeking out a therapist or making a change to your routine, even if it's one small thing. A lot of women know that one thing that if you change, you'll probably feel a little better about yourself and how you show up in the world. You don't
Yes.
Yeah.
even need a therapist, see a therapist
Yeah.
to let you like figure that out. Like, what is that one thing? If you just tweak that, you'll feel a little bit better. Whether it's going to bed a little earlier, getting that exercise in, as she just stated, Dr. Arielle just stated, taking a walk and looking at the scenery, whatever that is, it's important to do it. But ultimately, it's about changing your routines and your systems so you can show up effectively. And definitely that's going to enhance your personal brand.
Mm. I just love that. Like, this talk, um, I I don't I don't know how I decided. I decided 'cause this is my first talk like this. So thank you all for joining me, Ayanna, Dr. Errol, and everyone that's in this chat in this discussion. And don't be afraid to chime into the chat is open. You can definitely, converse. I'm looking at it. But I think that I decided December, like around Christmas, I was like, I'm not working again until January the 6th.
Mhm.
And I didn't. I refused. And
Mhm.
I've done something like that before, but I need to make that a regular practice. Is don't work for a specific amount of time
Yeah.
and to go to bed earlier. Those two things would make a world of difference.
Mhm.
And this talk is for all of us, but this is a talk for me. Selfish
Yeah.
reasons. I need some guidance too. It's
Mhm.
self-serving. It's for me.
Yeah, and I just told somebody that, like, literally, there's a commonality between, the ways that the warning signs, that are flashing at us. Like, for some people, it's so severe that it's like, I haven't even showered in 2 days,
Mhm,
and for others, it's more minimal. But if you can catch it before you get to the I haven't showered in 2 days, then typically it's better. But in order to do that, you gotta know what's happening. Like, all right, left dishes in the sink last night for the last night is okay. But when it's like the dish has been in the sink all week,
mm,
what's happening with me? What do I need? And it's important to continue to do those check-ins. What do I need? It
mm,
could be the smallest thing, like, okay, haven't showered. Let me go shower. And
mm,
some people are embarrassed to say that, but in reality, so many people can relate to that. So I think it's important to normalize. It's okay, you got there, but also how do you kind of back it up? What's the smallest piece you need?
mm,
I love that you said check in. I'm always telling my clients to check in with themselves again, because we're on autopilot. Like, check in, stop, take a beat, take a breath. What's going on? What do I need right now? How am I feeling right now? What can I do to feel
Mhm.
better in this moment? It's so important. It really changes the trajectory of our day if we do that more often.
And a key point, what do I need right now? Right? Because I need all the things.
And
The list will never stop.
years ahead, what do I need or what's going to happen in the future? All the anxiety. What do I need right now in this
Right.
very moment?
Hmm.
Start there and make good
yeah.
changes. Burnout decreases tremendously.
Hmm. I love
And
that.
so, and so, yeah, that was good. Those check-ins. And so I'm thinking about like just some of the ways that burnout affects us. You all mentioned, but how does it show up when you're talking about somebody building a brand or business? How does that show up, Dr. Ariel?
Yeah, I think that when we're thinking about like how does it show up, inconsistency, not able to show up and maintain that same level of quality.
Mhm,
I would say negativity, like your shift in your messaging is more frustration. I've kind of seen that a little bit now, even in myself, where I'm like, nope, let me rewrite that because I don't
mhm,
want it to come from a place of frustration. I want it to come from, for me, an educational level, a something that's going to help you. A lot of times I've seen people getting into arguments and
yeah.
stuff like that. I ain't got time for that. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to tell you the fact and also how it relates to what I'm talking about. And if it's not for you, keep scrolling, And so, like, that's how I show up in my brand without the negativity. Their inconsistency, is something that I named, but sometimes it looks different depending on how much capacity you have. And
Mhm,
I think that disconnection can be a good thing, but also disconnection can mean that you feel out of alignment with your values. So, like, if you're feeling like this is leading to burnout, you might need to disconnect to get clarity
mhm.
rather than keep going in disconnection where your values and your message is off. As to also procrastination, like when you see yourself avoiding decisions or tasks because I feel drained, that's an indication that you're headed towards that direction of burnout. And thinking about feedback as well, like noticing, like I think a lot of us do this where we'll notice like all the negative feedback, but we're not even looking at the positive stuff that has happened. So when you notice like, all right, I'm having less positive responses here when I'm engaging with my audience and noticing just only the negative, then maybe that's a shift as well that I need to make. So those are the like things that came up for me as I was thinking about, going into that direction of burnout and how to like maybe prevent ourselves from doing that or recognize that we're doing it.
I love what you said about the messaging because they say don't go to bed angry. They do not tweet, thread, post angry because your anger today might not reflect, your mood tomorrow, and people notice.
Mhm. Yeah, use that anger as fuel for positivity. Like, okay, you know what? This is what's negative over here. Here's what I'm going to do with it. Because what I've noticed the last just couple days is if I post something positive, um, people have been like clinging to it a little bit more. And I think it's just because our news is so negative. All of the things that we're seeing are so negative. So I think this is like the little light that people see and they're like, oh shoot. I just walked across the stage Saturday and I posted it and it blew up. And I'm like,
Saw that.
I didn't even say nothing.
I saw that.
Congratulations on that.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. But I noticed like I'm like, use this as your thought process to dream big, dream bigger, and that was all I said and it blew up. And I'm like, you know what? It's probably because there's so many negative things going
Mhm.
on right now that we need that little bit of light to cling on to. So I think that's the importance of like, am I headed towards burnout or not? Don't get me wrong. My client intakes have went up, people is hurting out here, but also how do I show up, authentically and for me.
Right, right.
Um, you were on point, Dr. Arielle. Signs that your personal brand may be suffering is like a disconnection from your message. Again, going back to your core values, who you are, your authenticity. If you're not connected to your messaging, then that's a sign that your personal branding may be suffering. So it could show up like procrastination,
Yeah.
all those things. Everything you just stated is so important that we stop and take check-ins with ourselves to ensure that we're aligning with our core values, our own personal core values, with our professional core values. And that's how we show up
Mhm.
authentically, excuse me, to ensure that our messaging is in line with who we are and who we say we are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we have a question, and those I appreciate that information because we don't, especially when you're talking about a personal brand. I mean, you are the person, so everything that you do is connected. Who you are. Everything that you do is connected to sales, marketing, uh,
Yeah.
audience building, community growing, and people want to book you. And if your brand personality is not one that's controversial or you're somebody that pushes back, when you do it, it's people are like, what's going on? We don't know her as that, but they don't know that have had dishes in your sink all week or you haven't showered in 2 days. They don't understand that you haven't eaten. They don't understand the toll that takes. So I think that
Hmm.
though having those core values, because that's one of the things that you need as somebody who's building your personal brand. You need core values, those tenets of your messaging and your brand that define it. And you refer back to that. Okay, well, I know that my core value is kindness.
Mm.
So, I'm a kind person. So maybe I don't want an angry tweet or whatever, you know.
Mhm.
Leave
Yeah.
that for the conversations that you have on a personal note. Everything is not for, online, fodder, as it were.
I
And
love that. I love what you said about the anger because, right, we get angry. We're human,
yeah, we
you know,
do.
and if we're talking about consistency and we still gotta show up, okay, how do I show up in my anger then? And if my like going back to your pillar, like your what did you say, core values? Going back to your
Mhm.
core value, if my core value is kindness and I'm angry and I want to show up authentic, I gotta show how do I show up with anger and still present kindness, right? So like it doesn't mean that you can't not like you can't show up because you're mad.
Yeah.
No, be angry, feel it, show up, but also in your anger, how do you still represent kindness? Or what's the struggle with representing kindness in your anger? Like you still can, show up in your brand, but it might be a little harder that day. you know?
Yeah. And we do have a question. So it's from Natalie. And she said, what have you all noticed are barriers to asking for help once we have identified what we actually need?
Mhm. Yes, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Natalie. A barrier to identifying or asking for help when you've identified what you needed. I would say once you identify it, you're halfway there. So I would ask myself or yourself, what is holding you back from asking? It could be a fear of criticism, right? It could be that you previously asked for help and you were met with unkindness or negativity. So it's important to find your tribe. And going back, I mentioned community earlier. We need people around us that's going to help us and encourage us and guide us. And we can't do it all ourselves. So I would encourage you or anybody who feels the same way. I'm sure it's many Natalie's out there or, Ayanna's out there that sometimes find it hard to ask for help, even though we know what we need. Think
Mhm.
about who in your life that you
Yeah.
for and has shown you kindness. That's one. And if you don't have
Mm.
that, I strongly encourage you to get in community. That could look like church. That could
Mhm.
look like um, uh, Goldman Sachs, 1 million Black women in business.
Yeah.
Um, just find cohorts, resources, communities where you can feel valued. It could look like volunteering, whatever it is, there's always help out there. So again, you know what you need, you know what you want. Don't be hesitant to ask for it. Figure out what it is. What is it that's holding you back? And then go from there.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, so in addition to like that, I would say overvaluing independence. Like, I don't want to ask for help because I've been the one that everybody leans on. What would they think if I need help? That's something that I see coming up a lot, or even not even knowing how to communicate it. Like, I know I need help with this project, but I don't even know where to start. You know, that's okay too. Let's start with like saying that we need help. Another common one I come across is like feeling like a burden. Like I feel like that myself.
Mm.
Like I don't want to bother that next person, but like because I be thinking like everybody has their own problems. I shouldn't add mine to their plate. But reality is, our load gets a little bit lighter when we share it, and that and perfectionism. You
Mm.
know, I don't want to ask because they may not do it the way that I would do it. And reality is they're not going to do it the way that you would do it. But, or it's just faster or easier if I do it myself. But that mindset leads to overwhelm. So, how about I let them try and then we'll kind of like work our way through this. And maybe this is a teaching point for them so that they can pick up and run with it the next time. But we got to work out the bugs and the kinks right now. So, those are the kind of things that I think come up pretty often or as barriers, to answer the question. And I think exactly what Ayanna said is like once we know them, that's half the battle. Now what? Now what do we do about it?
Mhm. I was thinking that we have to let go of damaging ideals, and
Mm,
the ideals, that strong Black woman ideal, or just that women can handle it all ideal. We have to let go of that because that's not true. We probably, come. Well, I'm going to speak for myself, but I know that I know that it happens to a lot of people. But you come from a background where you had a strong mother, strong grandmother, strong aunts and things like that. And so you do want to take it on all yourself. And being a strong Black woman is not is not a compliment because it usually means that people are dumping everything on you.
mhm,
Um, and so just getting over that mindset, for example, could um, eliminate the barrier of asking for help because if you're doing it all, then one thing that my mother used to say, she said, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
mhm.
Um, and I take that and then I add to it, if you want something done right, pay somebody else that knows how to do it. And so that's, do it yourself in that you're finding someone to help you. I'm not going to take that away from her because she said that, but
Right.
I definitely believe in what you can't do, get somebody else to do.
Yeah.
We're not even made to do everything. We only have 10 fingers.
Mm-mm.
And
And
so
I like the and part. Like this is what she said, and right. And if you can't pay somebody that already, obviously they have the skill set, but also even people with the skill set still need to know how you do it or how you want it done. So don't be afraid to teach people. Like I'm an army girl, so I'm always gonna go back to like standard operating procedures. But
Mhm.
how my brain works, right? So if I hire somebody that I can't expect them to get in my brain and know how that works, I have to teach them. So that's my thing. Here's my standard operating procedure of how I've done it and how I like it done. And now let me hand it to you because you're going to be able to pick up and say, oh, okay, I have a question about this or that, but it'll be there. So sometimes we're just starting out. We need to build a blueprint so that we can extend and say, I need help, and also I need help in this way. This is how I do it. And they can complement what you've already done.
And
Yeah.
I think another thing I was just thinking about was that the mindset of being a hustler. Like, we have folks that made, Rick Ross made Every Day I'm Hustling popular. And it became like a moniker for overworking,
Mhm.
overextending, just so you can get a dollar. And me, I don't ascribe to that.
Right.
I'm definitely more of a well rested mind, propels you to do different things. So to get, not wearing I'm a hustler as, a badge of honor, and even though we use it, but not to the extreme where hustling sends you to the hospital or, things like that. But I understand the go-getter mentality, but not to take it to the extreme where you are
Yeah.
damaging your mental health or your, physical health.
Right.
Definitely. Black women are pegged as superwoman, right? We can do it all. And we wear it like a badge of honor. And in fact, it's not. We need to
Mhm.
be well rested, as you stated. We need to outsource. I recently saw an interview from Barack Obama, and he said he outsources the small things, like whether it's what he needs to wear, what he's going to eat, you outsource those things. So if you can pay somebody to do it, if you can Instacart, if you could do any, like do those things, pay somebody to do it, do it. And definitely I agree with what you said, Dr. Arielle, the SOPs, the standard operating procedures of your life or what you need them to do, I think is important. Like for me, what I'm teaching my clients is how to be the CEO of their life and outsource certain things. So for
Yeah.
example, my practice focuses on the 8 dimensions of wellness, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual. Whatever you're deficient in your areas of wellness, we take a look at that. And let's say you're deficient in physical, maybe you need a personal trainer or a nutritionist. We're going to go ahead and connect you with them, not just refer you to them. If you need a
Mhm.
personal brand strategist, we're going to connect you with those people so you can live out your ideals,
Yeah.
and if any one of those wellness areas are deficient, it's going to affect your personal brand. It's going to affect you asking for help, but we have to know that it's okay asking for help. So I definitely want women to treat their life like they're the CEO. You have your mission statement. You have, those people on your team that's going to help you get you to the next level, but also decrease your overwhelm and stress. It's so important. You cannot be the one to do everything for yourself, your brand, life. You're going to feel depleted. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to be depressed. So please don't be afraid to ask for help. Can't pay somebody, ask for help, find free resources, but there's so much help out there nowadays. Don't feel alone.
I like what you said about Rick Ross too. Listen, I love using that word hustle,
Mhm.
but I also in my branding have now put hustle and harmony, right? Because we can't have one without the other. Because if you have too much harmony, then you're kind of like, in my mind, getting complacent to where you're not hustling. And if you have too much hustle, you're getting into where you are going to burn out. So you really need both. And that's the hustling, but I check in and see how I'm doing with it. Monday I go hard, Tuesday's a little bit lighter. I can have both, but I got to figure out what that means for me. And it's different for every person. Our capacity is different. So, still for me, still vibe with the hustle, but also where's your harmony there? What are you doing to live well? That's the greater step, you know.
I like what
Yeah.
you said for me, because we look at social media and They say, you know, this is the next big thing, or this is how you need to do things, and this is how you need to get rest, and this is what wellness looks like. And you're looking like, well, I don't really like bubble baths or massages. That's not what self is for everybody. You know, that's not what wellness is for everybody. So
Yeah.
really back to your core values and saying, what is it that I need? What works for me? And then creating your time. Like you said, I love how you said, Tony, you know, Wednesdays is your day. Like you can create that. It just takes
Mhm.
organization and time and a restructuring of your life. It takes strategy and
Yes.
system, but it really can be done.
Yeah. And consistency is a pace.
Mm,
Consistency is not like a quickness.
right.
And I think that, a lot of us, we don't pace ourselves. Everything has to be done now. And really, there's no grade. Now, I understand we have to pay bills and things like that. And, the first and the 15th, that is a deadline. That's a real deadline. But the pace. I was up last night adding some new items to my store, and I was like, I want to get these done before the new week because I'm busy and I
Mhm.
won't have time. And then I think I wind up going to sleep at maybe like 1:30. And for years, I've been saying I need to go to bed by 10 p.m. I haven't seen a 10 p.m. bedtime. But I think last night was one of those things. It was like, Tony, that really could have waited till the morning. You didn't have to push yourself like this. You, the pace, it's like, so I think that other thing about, just being consistent, but also pacing yourself because,
Yeah.
you're not, it's the self-care aspect is not there. And so this is another question for you all. When you're talking about building your personal brand, what does self-care look like when you feel like you're on a deadline or you don't have time or, something is coming up? What does self-care even look like then? Either one of you all can take it. Ayanna, you can take it.
I would say it's about finding time for self-care. I like to tell women, do a time audit. See
Mhm.
where you are losing time and wasting time. Like they say, Beyonce, if Beyonce could do it, we could do it. Beyonce has 24 hours a day, just like us. And not to compare, but at your level, at your pace. I love that you said consistency is a pace because a lot of women have all or nothing thinking. Either I'm gonna go hard or not at all. And we neglect that space in the middle. It takes time. It takes time. So definitely it's about just finding time. You have the time. And if you feel like you don't, you still did a time audit and you feel like you don't, you need to list what you're doing as far as priority. Like what
Mhm.
is top priority for today and what can be left for tomorrow? Like you said, you could have went to bed at 10, but you decided to stay up and was it worth it? Not really. So we're telling ourselves, we're labeling things as high priority when in essence they're not. So do a time audit, figure out what's priority and make some changes to your schedule.
Mhm. I like that. I like that a lot. And it definitely is in alignment with the top three things that I do as well. Protecting your time and energy. I'm thinking, I need to set some boundaries here. I need to take intentional breaks. I need to carve out time to spend with my dog or my loved ones. So I'm making sure that my schedule reflects my priorities. And so I'm protecting my time. So that way, if I can, I don't want to stretch myself too thin. I would say honoring my mental health, my emotional health. Uh, Obviously, that's what I do through my work. So it's vital that I nurture my own as well. So that looks like journaling for me, attending therapy, and even mindfulness practices to like center myself. And I do that throughout the day because I see a lot of clients that present with trauma. So I need to make sure that I am centered to be able to hold space for them. And if I'm not, then it's not going to go well. So I've learned that over the years that here's some things that I need to honor my mental health and my emotional health. And then I would say the third thing is to do what brings you joy. So I find myself these days figuring out what joy means today doesn't mean what it meant like 10 years ago. So what does fill my cup, so that I can give from my overflow rather than just keep filling it back up until it's empty? Like, no, how do I fill it up and kind of like keep it full so that I can continue to pour into others? Well, that includes like I love nature, going out into nature. I'll take a trip in a second, if I can afford it or whatever, it makes sense. And I try to schedule meaningful travels to where, like, for me, what fills my cup is to like learn about history or the culture that I'm visiting, or it can be very simple that I take my dog to the dog park. It doesn't have to be a big, huge thing, but what am I doing that I enjoy that spills over into my work and my home, because very rarely do I take opportunities these days that don't make sense to me. So I think those things are important for me.
Hmm.
And we have a few comments. So Katrina mentioned, and I definitely appreciate all of those answers. And some things I know I need to do for myself as a
Mhm.
reminder. But we have a from Katrina. She says, I definitely need to time audit. I look up and have 15 things I'm working on, but none is completed. Yes. And then she said, I think looking at all these tabs open is messing with my mental health. But my brain say, don't close it so you remember to do that thing. And it's a rotating circle of incompletion. And
Mhm.
as a creative, you are right.
Mhm.
Because you could have, I know for me, I could have Canva open, Photoshop,
Yep.
WordPress, Dipsado, ChatGPT, MailChimp,
Coming for me.
LinkedIn,
Mhm.
Same.
LinkedIn.
Okay.
So, and that's so true. And that's where but what I have started doing was completing the thing that would take the quickest or the shortest amount of time so I can say I at least completed, sending out my newsletter today as opposed to working on a long form blog post, which would take some more time. So I think working on the thing that takes the shortest amount of time first, and then working on it at that pace and realizing that you're your own competition. There's no rush, of course, other than the first and 15th. But I mean, hey, if you're responsible, then your bills are paid regardless, or whatever the case may be. If you have the money, whatever. So, but just like you're going to get it done, but it shouldn't sacrifice your mental health, because if it does, then you're not going to get anything done.
Mhm.
Nothing is going to get done. So pacing yourself in completing small tasks first for the day, and then moving on to the next day. And if you finish tasks for that day, don't go into tomorrow's tasks. Maybe prepare for them, but just leave them for tomorrow to get done.
Mhm.
I think, like, for myself, I try to do it that way, but then there's some days where I'm like, I feel really good today. I feel energetic. So I'll do the exact opposite. I will do the thing that takes longest to get done, or the thing that has all the
Mhm.
pieces to get done, and I will do it like that because I feel good in that moment. So going back to the assessment, right? I'm assessing. I feel good today. I feel like I could take on that thing that's, big, and I'll complete that. And that's my brain's reward center. Like, okay, you go, girl, high five. And then I will take on, maybe the smaller tasks, or I will say, it's self-care time. I'm not doing nothing, and that's okay. So, there's different ways to do it, but I think, kind of checking in with yourself is where you begin. What can I get done? Is it the smallest thing that I need to get done today? Just a baby step towards the direction? Or do I feel good? Can I take on a bigger chunk? Doesn't matter. It's no wrong answer. You're moving forward either way, whether it's a small step or a big step.
Exactly. A lot of times we're just overthinking. But yeah, the reward center, whether it's the small task, like what is something that I can do really quick to say I checked it off my list, that's going to build trust and confidence with yourself to do the next right thing. Or it's the big task, like you said, Dr. Ariel, you do what's big and you feel good about yourself. Either way, assess where you are for that day and do it. And with the tabs open, it's not only on the computer, it's in our brain too. Write it
Oh,
down. Don't leave stuff. I mean, you could use digital like phones and computers to, keep things or keep abreast of what's going on in your life and what needs to be done next. But writing it down, it does something. It puts it on paper, and checking it off, actually you feel like, okay, I did something. So I would
Yeah.
say the 15 things that who asked that question again?
Katrina.
Katrina, the 15 tabs that you have open, write down those 15 tabs. Like Tony said, I have Canva open, I have LinkedIn. Okay, what do I need to do for Canva today? What do I need to do? And just go from there. But have a list, and every day the list could be big. You could have those 15 things, but you can't get all those 15 things done today or this week or maybe even this month. But what are 3 things? I like to think of my day, the top 3 things. If I have 15 things on my to-do list, what's the top 3? Sometimes I get to 2, sometimes 1.
Yep.
Maybe some days I know it's none because maybe I woke up on the wrong side of the bed or it's just not my day. My body is telling me I need rest. So listen to your body too. We listen to our bodies and we take rest, but then it's not really rest because you're like, man, I could be doing this and we're just overthinking and we're beating ourselves up, and that does not create a healthy mindset to succeed. So think about, Katrina, what you're telling yourself about the 15 things on your list. Are you like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do and how am I going to get it done? Or are you like, I got this, I'm gonna figure this out and I'm gonna write everything down and I'm gonna check it off. So I want you to think about it from that perspective. So it's a lot to do. You don't have to do it all at once. Take it one day at a time, one moment at a time if you need to.
Yeah. What works
And,
best for you right now?
and we have one more question before we close out.
Mhm.
Can you all discuss some of the taxes some of our counterparts may not have to deal with, like
Ooh.
race tax, gender tax, lower income tax, that
Mhm.
impacts the daily grind in this country, and how to recognize them, embrace them, and overcome them? And then I'm going to add the part to that and not let it affect you building your business or brand.
Mhm.
So,
And this
mhm.
is so timely, high achieving Black women, we face different challenges. We're at the intersection of not only race, but gender. It's just so much. Definitely whatever, like as far as taxes, seek out professional help, hopefully, preferably from a Black professional, because they know the issues and the particular issues we face when it comes to being a Black woman of color. Um, so definitely seek out professional help, and how to not let it stop you. You have to think about your why. What's your overarching goal? I like to think, like, I have a lot of mentors. Most of them I don't know. How did Oprah get over this? How did Beyonce get over this? How did they have to push through despite whatever challenge they were facing during that time? And I
Mhm.
think you have to just look at it like that, like keep going. Don't take no for an answer and keep pushing in spite of it. But the toll gets heavy. So definitely seek out professional help because you can't do it alone. It creates a trauma. We're fearful of the
Mhm.
future, of how we're going to go about living our lives and building a business. But it can be done because if you look around, maybe not immediately in front of you, but if you look at people who have done it and follow people's stories, you see that it has been done. So don't hesitate. Again, if you don't have access to somebody right in front of you, autobiographies, reading articles, interviews on people who I respect and admire, that did, no matter who you see at the top, they all face some type of challenge. Whose
Mhm.
story is most similar to yours? Who can you relate to the most? And use them as a guide.
I love
Mhm.
that. I love that. I just did a YouTube about um, how your resume is not enough when you're talking about your personal brand. And the examples that I used was Issa Rae, Tabitha
Mm,
Brown, and Bozuma St. John, and how all of their roles didn't define them. They went on to take their personal brand to places that, had they allowed those isms and schisms and exisms and sexism and ageism to get in the way, that they wouldn't have been able to do. And it just and now they built brands that not only help them but also employ other people too. And I think that um, not seeing it as a barrier, like we know that it's there, but it's
Mhm.
to me it's not a barrier. To me, it's a plus, because usually our stories are nuanced and we can connect with a lot of different people. Um, and it's like asking a 5-year-old for advice. Now, trust me, kids, they have some things to tell you and share with you. I have a 7-year-old niece, and some of the things that she said, I'm like, huh? Who told you that? And she's just as smart and quick as she want to be, but in terms of wisdom, I'm going to ask an older one. I'm going to ask somebody who has a lifetime of you know decision making or whatever the case might be. So it's kind of the same. We have as Black women, and in business, a vast majority of experience that counterparts don't. Not in the same space that we do, and not looking at it as it's a minus. It's not a minus for me. It's a plus. I've had clients say, I work with you because you are, and when they get to the set in rollers and we take out their hair and it's in a perfect afro, this is the reason why. Because I do understand black hair. Yeah, you can come to the set with rollers. We'll get you right. So just those type of things, I don't really look at it as, I embrace all of the nuances of being a black woman.
Mm.
Dr. Ariel.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, you know, the hidden taxes applying to like some of the things that we had already discussed, like recognizing them for one. If we don't recognize them, how do we fix them? So when you're thinking about obviously marginalized populations, recognize them more because that is the barrier or the extra burden that's placed on us, due to systemic inequalities. So, race, gender, thinking about LGBTQIA plus community and identities, thinking about disabilities and things like that. They add layers of complexity to every life, and we have to recognize that. And after we recognize it, thinking about how do we face the barriers to overcome them. And I think it's going back to some of the things that we've said already, like setting boundaries. We got to protect our energy. If I know like a racist company or not racist company, but maybe like racist people are asking me to come and work for them or do something for them, I think it's my due diligence to know like some of the comments that might have been said or things like that and say no when I need to, because that protects my brand and my peace. Like actually, all money ain't good money, in my opinion. I lean on community, those who support and understand me. And I reframe the struggle. Like those challenges don't have to define you. They're actually proof of your strength. So, I'm always going to advocate for fair systems. And I'm also going to prioritize my own growth and my self-care. So understanding these, I think, helps you to rise above it. You focus on what you can control and you try to build a better path for yourself and others. Like that's kind of how I look at it. So some of the things that you all said and then other things that we've talked about, I think play a role in like why this matters, but also how to protect your peace is you focus on what you what you can't control. But we can't control everything. So we just kind of have to take a step back sometimes, go to the drawing board, seek professional help, like you guys have already mentioned. So, that's my best answer for that because those taxes are not going away. It's just how do we, figure out a way to make them better for ourselves and others. We got to put our heads together and just keep, doing the next step.
Yeah, I like what you said about it reminded me of what we were kind of talking about before, where I thought we were drinking our water and minding our business this year. So just staying focused on what you can control and what affects you in your daily life, and try not to get distracted by everything that's seeking to pull you down or pull you into a space where you're not really headed in terms of mentally. You could, be having a good day, you read something, and now your day is gone, and so is your productivity, so is your consistency, and now you don't want to do anything, and now the next day you're back at the drawing board because that thing is still looming. So I think that, even to close this out, what I even say to myself, and I kind of posted, I thought we were drinking our water and minding our business this year. So that's how, that's the tempo, but it's a
And I
good
like,
way to protect your mental health.
yeah, and I like the drinking my water and minding my business, but also there comes a point at some point that you cannot stay silent. So like the balance, of when do I speak and when do I not speak? I'm not trying to convince or change anybody's perspective or their minds. What I'm going to speak on is the truth though. Like, one of the things that I just spoke about was like history. Like we're not going to erase history. So therefore, I can't be silent, right? Because there's people that don't know this history. So now I'm gonna keep speaking on it as time and space permits. But I'm also gonna drink my water and mind my business, for those people that are never gonna hear it. So it's still making a choice where just in my profession, a lot of people say therapy is not politics, but it is. We cannot not have politics in our therapy, and that like all of the, you know, recent sessions and things that I've been having with people who suffer from trauma, a lot of them are marginalized populations. I can't be quiet for that. I have to speak up. We have to advocate. So there's a balance of like drinking your water and minding your business, but also speaking on what's true when it does, when opportunity presents. You know, if you have a bigger platform, it's like, oh, okay, who are you siding with? And I did see the stuff about Tabitha Brown saying that it affects other Black businesses if you boycott Target. Like, we got to weigh this out here, you know, and see what's realistic. But we can't attack her for having her opinion, I think, because that affects her personally, you know. So it's like, all right, where are we at on the spectrum? But I think we have to kind of like look at the big picture and then kind of apply like what's my small piece that I want to do, and you figure it out.
Yeah. And if it's one word that I want to kind of summarize to a degree, is to have balance. It's to have balance in personal and professional, is to have balance.
Yeah.
And so, I want to thank everybody for coming, and tell everyone where they can find you. Ayanna, where can they find you?
So, my brand is The Conscious Pearl. We're a wellness practice that offers consciously curated care for high achieving women of color. And we do that with counseling, coaching, and concierge care. You can find me at The Conscious Pearl on Instagram, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn. My name, Ayanna Facey. And if you go to my website, www.theconsciouspearl.com, you'll get all of the links there, and you can sign up to be a subscriber of the newsletter, which goes out every week, and we don't spam you. It's great information and you'll love it.
Thank you.
So,
Dr.
okay.
Arielle, where can they find you?
So you can find me in two places, well, more than two places, but I have two websites. My private practice, which is where I offer trauma therapy, EMDR therapy, mindset quality, LLC.com. Same on Instagram and Facebook, Mindset Quality LLC. And then my other business is speaking business, where I offer trainings and coachings to leaders that want to level up, you know, their mindset as well. And that website is Arielle N for Nicole Jordan. So ariellenjordan.com. And same thing on Facebook and Instagram, Arielle N Jordan, on LinkedIn, area Dr. Arielle Jordan. So you can find me all those places. I also send out a newsletter on LinkedIn and to my email list, trying to get my consistency down. But I am showing up and I'm out there and I have good things going on. So check me out.
Yes.
To add
And
doctor to the
Doc,
website.
yes, Dr.
Dr.
Arielle.
Arielle. Yeah.
Doc-
Also, I have an organizational wellness platform, Conscious Consult. So we also provide leaders with training on emotional intelligence and compassion fatigue and psychological safety. You know, we can't do DEI right now, but definitely everybody deserves to work in a space where it's psychologically safe. So if you are in a toxic workplace environment and you guys need a little bit of help, I can also provide services in that area as well.
Well, that's excellent. That's all great information, and I'm so glad to have you all here. This will be posted on YouTube, which I'm very excited about, because I think this is a conversation that should be viewed and seen on more than just this day and this small group of amazing people, including the participants. And thank you for your questions. And if you have any more, you can send Dr. Arielle a message on LinkedIn, or you can send Ayanna a message on LinkedIn, or even me, and we will be happy to answer. So we appreciate everybody for coming, and the next talk will be coming up in February.